here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
And Wendell Shepherd. And Wendell Shepherd. Good job, Peyton. Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, August 28th, and it's South Dakota week. Kenny and Peyton. And as Peyton so kindly introduced, because we don't have our pre-recorded guy. No, he didn't record this with Wendell Shepherd. If you're watching on the YouTube, we have a fourth member starting the show off. It's South Dakota week. So, we had to bring in an expert, had to bring in the big guns to preview the game, talk about everything. So we brought the Columbia Missourian's own Mizzou football beat writer, Wendell Shepherd, friend of the show, recurring guest. He's been on before. So Wendell, good to see you. How have you been? How's the beat been for you so far this summer and fall? Just early observations. And of course, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be back. I'm glad that season's finally starting. It feels like I've been, talking about the same stuff, writing about the same stuff. But it's been fun. I think there's a lot of cautious optimism around this team. So I'm looking forward to the season and seeing what they do this year.
Yeah, welcome back. And I had to mention too, Kenny passed the torch. He was, of course, in your spot last year. So we'll end the show with a little bit of advice. But yeah, stuff from, we have seen your tweets. You have been very busy, and I'm sure probably getting sick of reporting the, random injury doldrums and other news of fall camp. But, just from your own observations, you mentioned, I know, the optimism of this team. We've talked a ton about the, QB battle, the offensive line. Is there anyone maybe that you've like watched that's kind of stuck out so far? Whether specific names or even from the squads, coaches, kind of putting their foot down, just general observations.
I'm very, very interested to see the offense and sort of how Kirby Moore uses tight ends. Tight end position, at least since I've followed Mizzou the last 3 years, has been kind of just a position out there. We never had a tight end that has really contributed much. I believe last season, Mizzou only had like 150 yards, receiving yards for tight ends. And the last few practices, Brett Norfleet, Jordan Harris, both true freshmen, have been lining up with first team or with the starters. So I'm interested to see what happens there. But yeah, seems like the offensive line, there were a bunch of question marks in the spring. That seems to have kind of settled itself. And there's definitely a starting group that's kind of separated. So I think offensive line should be much improved. I think Cameron Johnson is going to be really good. Mimbu at right tackle again. So yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the tight end position. We've known it's been kind of lackluster the last couple of years, especially since Alberto has been gone. And you mentioned the 150 yards. I had to look it up because I remember this play like distinctly. Ryan Horstkamp's touchdown in week 11 last season was for 32 yards. And so that 32 yards eats up a lot of those 150 yards that you just mentioned. On the passing end, though, quarterback-wise, we know that Mizzou's going to look at Brady Cook and Sam Horn in week 1. Is there kind of like an expectation of how many quarters, how many snaps these guys are going to see that Drinkwitz mentioned?
No, he after on what day was that? Last week, his weekly press conference, he didn't address any of that. Everyone was asking questions. How many quarterbacks are you going to use? Who are we going to see first? Is Brady Cook going to have the first half? Sam Horn going to have the second? How's that going to work out? He didn't give anything away. Only thing he said is that multiple quarterbacks are going to play. Just based on who's been going out first every practice, I would assume. I think it's a safe guess to say that Brady Cook will see the first snap, but I don't know for sure.
Just switching gears now. I mean, there's been so much talk around the offense, and rightfully so. It was probably the distinct weakness of the team last year, but the defense, I mean, they return almost everyone from what wound up being a surprisingly really strong unit. What's kind of the expectation around the defense going into this year? They still have Blake Baker. They return everyone except for Martez Manuel and Elijah McGuire and DJ Coleman in terms of starters. Do they expect to keep the same level of play, or is there maybe an expectation that maybe they could get either better or worse?
I think the goal for themselves is to be the best in the SEC, best in the country. I remember back during the spring, I talked to some players, and they mentioned um, no, the Mizzou teams that won the SEC East about a decade ago, and how they had a dominant defense. They got a lot of takeaways, and they're aiming to be at that level. My story that will be coming out a little bit later this week is talking about kind of giving a defensive preview, because I don't think there's any reason to believe that they'll drop off at all. I think if anything, the edge position I think is a bit of a question mark, but I think that's the only one. I think they got are either the same or got stronger everywhere else through the portal. But yeah, I think the expectation is for the defense to be just as good or better than last year.
And my bad. I think I said Elijah McGuire.
I was going to say.
Elijah McGuire's a damn running back. That's my bad.
We all knew.
Yeah.
You mentioned the defense real quick. You're talking with Blake Baker. He has a lot of different lingos, and he's always very complimentary of the team that he's facing. Is there anything he really pointed out about South Dakota that could give this defense any trouble?
Drinkwitz talked a bit about that. Basically saying, I guess, that the defense are going to get a lot of different looks. The offensive coordinator at South Dakota, formerly the offensive coordinator at South Dakota State, uses a bunch of different formations, multiple tight ends, a lot of motion, a lot of different run schemes. So it seems like, I don't know about. I mean, obviously, the FCS school, there will be a bit of a talent gap, but I think just in terms of scheme and defense having to adjust on the fly to different formations, that'll be a good test. It seems like, but yeah, that's what I've heard so far.
I wanted to ask too, with among the kind of few transfers that have come in this season, I'm switching back to offense for a second. We know Theo Wees was obviously the big name coming in at wide receiver. Obviously, Luther Burden has a lot of hype going into his second season, was, the preseason All-SEC third team. Mookie Cooper there as well. What's your take on these wide receivers, on that room that, obviously the quarterback still remains a question mark. But, how have you seen him kind of fitting in, and what kind of year do you think they'll have at the wide receiver position?
I think Theo Wees is going to be great. I think he is the kind of profile of a receiver that Mizzou hasn't had in a long time. Someone asked Mookie Cooper about him earlier this offseason. He's like, he looks like an SEC receiver. Not that Mizzou doesn't have SEC caliber receivers, but he's 6'2", close to 200 pounds, long, fast. So I think he's going to be that outside threat that Mizzou hasn't had in a while. And I think Luther Burden moving into the slot is going to be great for him and for the offense. That's where Levitt played last year. He was Mizzou's most productive receiver. And Luther's obviously talented, and I think will be very productive there. And I think the receivers should make whoever ends up being the quarterback long term should make their job easier. Yeah.
We heard a lot about Mekhi Miller last season. You mean those plays against Florida? There was a lot of just sneaky plays that he made here out of the slot. It feels like he's still underrated. Feels like we're still not hearing a lot about Mekhi Miller, especially with the transfers in the wide receiver room. Our coaches, still really high on Mekhi Miller, still talking highly of him.
Definitely, yeah. I think he's going to be the first receiver, off the bench, or if there's any four receiver sets, he's going to be out there. That starting group is Wees, Burden, Cooper right now, but Mekhi Miller is very versatile, and that's something that I've heard praised about him from the coaching staff. So I definitely think we're going to see a lot of him this season, probably more so than last year. So yeah.
Just switching to the backfield now, I think the expectation obviously is that Schrader will still get a good amount of carries. Nate Pete has apparently had a very good spring and fall. But who could maybe emerge as kind of that third running back that maybe gets a couple carries here and there? We've heard, I think it's been kind of a split competition between Tavares Jones and Jamal Roberts. Is there any separation between those two? Do we know maybe who could be the third back there?
I would not be surprised if it's Jamal Roberts. He's had a very strong camp. Drinkwitz and a lot of the other players as well in the offense have talked about how good of a camp he's had. He's explosive, breaks tackles. Definitely Schrader and Pete are going to be the guys. Drinkwitz said the other day that, whoever has the hot hand is going to be the guy that's getting the most carries between the two of them. And I think Pete's pass catching ability that he kind of already showed before this year is going to keep him on the field. But yeah, I think Jamal Roberts, it seems like will probably be that third back. DeVoris Jones is impressed as well. But I think Roberts has seemed to have separated himself a little bit, or has made a name for himself, for sure.
Fun fact about DeVoris Jones, he's left-handed. I don't know. You don't see many left-handed running backs who even know what hand they throw with, but that's the thing I can throw out about T-Man.
There you go.
They also call him T-Man. That's another
Big facts.
fun fact.
Why didn't you lead with that? I guess that's not a
nickname.
super crazy nickname, but that is what it is.
He's from El Paso. There's my last one.
There you go. Three fun facts. 2 truths and a lie with DeVoris Jones. Wendell, I hate to make you do a lot of some of the reporting that you have been doing with injuries, but obviously that's a thing that kind of dominates the headlines right now before the season. You tweeted about Chad Bailey getting that procedure for you put it a soft tissue injury. He's out for 21 days. I guess just give us maybe a general injury update, and then who might kind of fill in for him while he's bouncing back from that.
Yeah, so Chad Bailey will be out for, we know for sure the first 2 games. It's very unclear what exactly the injury is, whether it's even lower body, upper body.
They love to be vague.
Yeah, he just said soft tissue injury. That could be anywhere on his body, but yeah, and he had a procedure. Don't know if that's surgery, a cortisone shot. We don't know, but but they seem pretty confident in Damian Wilson filling in for Bailey while he's out. He played every snap versus Georgia last year, a lot of snaps versus Florida, I believe, as well, when Bailey was out last year. So they seem pretty confident in him to fill his shoes. Obviously, Chad Bailey's the guy you want out there, 6-year senior. But yeah, Damian Wilson, Drinkwitz threw out Chuck Hicks as well as someone who could see some time with Bailey out. As far as other injuries go, that's about it. Isaac Thompson is out for the whole season. Safety, redshirt freshman. Leg injury, don't know what that injury is. That's another thing. He was in a full leg cast and was on crutches last week, but don't know the specifics there. Jalen Carlisle has been dealing with another soft tissue injury, but he seems like he's back full go. And those are the only injuries that we've heard of.
I always love the soft tissue injuries. It goes from college to professional. It's always some level of discomfort, and you never actually know what the issue is. Yeah. And I remember he would say soft tissue injuries last year, and people would ask, and he's like, "That's all I can say. It's a soft tissue injury." The one thing I hope, though, is you still get a lot of surprise Chad Bailey. When you do these defensive press conferences, Chad Bailey just shows up sometimes and talks for 3 minutes, and everyone's like, "We talked to you every single day this year, Chad. We don't have anything else to ask." He always shows up. And for a guy that's very soft-spoken, he loves just going up there and talking. And he doesn't always have a lot to say, but Chad Bailey's always a fun one.
There you go. Get a whole bunch of Chad Bailey. Okay, I want to get into South Dakota a little bit, Wendell. I know you have a couple days before the game, but have you started any research on who Mizzou is facing? What possible problems they can pose as far as South Dakota goes? Obviously, the expectation is going to be a blowout, of course, for Mizzou on Thursday night. But hey, can't underestimate any opponent. What do you know about South Dakota coming in?
They have a pretty decent quarterback, seems like on paper, Aiden Bowman. He former Iowa State Cyclone. This is going to be his second year as a starter. He's left-handed as well. Same with T-Man.
Oh, there you go.
Same as T-Man, yeah. But
lefties.
He had an all-conference season, I believe, last year. So they have someone they can throw the rock. Drinkwitz shouted out their running back Travis Tice, I believe is how you say that. Very physical runner downhill, kind of compared him to Cody Schrader. So those are the main names I've kind of zeroed in on, I guess. But yeah, I definitely think the expectations for Mizzou to handle South Dakota.
Yeah. take care of business. I had to ask too, on special teams, has Mevis, are the rumors true? Has Mevis slimmed down a little bit? We've heard some rumblings, but we were told the thicker kicker might not be as we know, like before last year, I guess we heard he got bigger, and now apparently we're hearing he's slimmed down a little bit. And he was second team all SEC preseason, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the most phenomenal eyes, but he looks about the same to me. Times I've seen him. I wouldn't say that he's any bigger though.
Yeah. As long as they go through the uprights.
Yep. Yeah, and I know it seemed like for a bit early in camp that he might lose out on the kickoff duties. I think he'll be we'll see him every time. Blake Craig, I think, is probably the kicker of the future, but Mevis, I think, is still going to be handling all kicking duties this year.
We need him to hit someone on a kickoff if he's going to be taking those. We need to see just him, like it looks like a good return. He just lays them out at like the 50-yard line. I need a big hit from Harrison Mevis this year.
That would definitely be entertaining. For sure.
I just did some research on Aiden Bowman because I was just interested in, because you mentioned he played at Iowa State. So he redshirted in 2020. In 2021, his what he's listed on the roster as is squad member. So he's not actually like a position. It just says squad member. So it might just mean he was on the practice squad, which that kind of sucks for him because he was a 4-star recruit and a 3-star by 247 in Rivals. His dad played in the NFL for the Vikings, Saints, Rams, and Jaguars. He went to St. Cloud State. A lot of history there for the Bowman family.
The Bowman family. That's a good NFL grid name then. What's his dad's name?
Bowman. Todd
Bowman. Use him for your grids.
Mother Courtney.
Kenny just kind of mentioned his recruiting rankings. I actually want to jump into recruiting. You had a weird situation this past week, Wendell, when Devontae Perkins said he committed to Mizzou, and then apparently he just said that, but Mizzou, he's not a take at Mizzou. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, this was very strange. I actually I don't know how soon I would have caught on to this. Someone DM'd me on Twitter and was like, hey, this kid, committed to Mizzou on Instagram. I checked it out. I had never heard of him because, I am probably way too deep into recruiting now at this point, or just knowing who has their eyes on. And I hadn't heard of this guy before. I did some research on him. Seems like he has a couple offers. He's visited Mizzou pretty recently, into July. So yeah, I put the tweet out, and then I was contacted by a member of the athletic department, and then they were like, we've never offered this kid. We don't know why he said that. They said that he visited campus, but they didn't offer him in any capacity. Preferred walk-on scholarship. There was no offer of any kind, and I don't know. It's just I'm not sure what the thought process there was for Perkins. I was looking at through his Instagram, and last time I checked, he blocked me on Instagram. But last time I checked, the post is still up.
It is. I just looked. So.
Yeah, which doesn't make much sense to me. And he released like a top 4 graphic, which I believe had Georgia, Mizzou, Marshall, and NC State. And from everything that I found, he's only been offered by one of those schools. So yeah, this was very strange.
He blocked you on Instagram.
Yeah, and I never even followed him on Instagram, so I think my account and
just name searched. Who's the guy that retracted his saying I got offered? He figured me out. Well, good journalisming. Way to that's it is a strange situation.
I'm looking more at his Instagram right now. He has 65,000 followers.
Really?
He's like an influencer. He's got a YouTube channel with well over like 5,000 subscribers.
Should have him on the show.
I did see there's a thought that this guy may be the human embodiment of Bishop Sycamore, because nobody can find any stats of him. He's said he's played for 3 different high schools, and nobody can find a roster with him on any of them. It's bizarre. And that's recruiting in 2023. So,
but you said, Wendell, that the athletics department told you he did take like a visit.
Yeah, I mean,
which would
he
be
has pictures. Yeah, he has pictures of him on campus. The person I
interesting.
spoke to said that he has been on campus. He did take a visit. I'm guessing an unofficial one. So he
Yeah, it
does
must
play
have been.
football apparently.
Apparently,
I I
allegedly.
couldn't I couldn't find any film on him. Just someone's asking me in the comments like, "Can I see any film on this kid?" And I was like, I can't find any. um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean,
he has visited Mizzou, so in several other schools. But
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there's an Instagram story of him shaking hands with Nick Saban. I think anybody could get a visit in theory. I don't know. This is
Yeah, I
just a
guess.
weird situation. I don't think anybody should blame you for that, Wendell. Because I mean, it's like a full on committed graphic and everything. So
yeah, it seems legit. He probably paid to have that graphic made and
Yeah.
and everything. But yeah, it's very one of the most bizarre things I think I've definitely experienced in my young career.
Yeah,
It's
good.
like
Good.
teenage Gronk instead
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
baby
say
Gronk.
this is like a baby Gronk situation.
Baby Gronk, teener Gronk, teenage Gronk.
That's funny.
I don't know. What do you call it? Teenager Gronk? Okay, that's the word.
Yeah,
Gronk.
teenager Gronk, teen Gronk.
Teen Gronk.
I do want to ask Wendell. Well, I'm going to switch to real recruits and real commits now.
Okay.
With this, Nwaneri situation, he's dominated our probably show titles for the last like month and a half, and now that he's committed, obviously that was a big thing. What have you, I guess, maybe just observed and your thoughts on what Drinkwitz has done in this recruiting cycle? It's obviously been really impressive. And then too, just obviously being in Columbia, have you noticed kind of a buzz around that and around his commitment and just the excitement for the future with how well they've done in recruiting?
Yeah, I think just, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this on here. I think just there's a lot of buzz. I think just around Mizzou athletics right now, as far as recruiting goes with basketball and what Dennis Gates is doing. There's was a ton of excitement. My phone was blowing up the day Nwaneri committed. Um, yeah, I think that there's a ton of excitement. It made me think back to early when Drinkwitz was hired. He was talking about as far as recruiting goes, he wanted to like seal off the state. He was like, Missouri's a very kind of underrated state as far as high school talent goes, and we want to keep the best kids here. And it seems like he's slowly getting to a point where he's doing that. Luther Burden, James Madison is from KC, goes to school in Florida, but is from Kansas City. And I think Nwaneri is the first big KC prospect that's committed to Mizzou. He's gotten has gotten several from the St. Louis area, so I think this could be kind of a landmark moment for Drinkwitz, and especially if he signs, and just for recruiting in general for the KC area, because other kids are going to see this and be like, okay, Williams Nwaneri thinks he can go and win at Mizzou, or can develop there. I'm gonna go there as well, and I definitely think that the NIL law is a factor here. I mean, and I'm not saying that Nwaneri wouldn't have wanted to go to Mizzou anyway, but I think the fact that Brian Wingo, other guys in state, if they sign their letter of intent to go to Mizzou, days later they can start making NIL money. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very big moment, and I think this class is shaping up. There's momentum with Wingo. I think this is going to end up being a top 20 class when it's all said and done.
You mentioned James Madison there, and for a guy who made a spectacular catch last night on ESPN2,
touchdown.
It was a great touchdown catch. He has been a big recruiter himself. What have you kind of seen just on Twitter, even maybe talking to these guys, talking to coaches? I guess the coaches can't say anything about James Madison yet, but talking to maybe even some industry sources that you have, like what makes James Madison so special?
Kind of like what I was talking about with Theo Weezer earlier. He's kind of receiver Mizzou doesn't have. He's 6'4", which I was very surprised by. Like he doesn't look it. But he's 6'4", very long receiver, and like that catch that he made, he's got the ability to go out and make tough catches. But yeah, and he's got some speed too. For a guy his size, watching some of his film, he's used in a lot of different ways. You see him work in the slot. He's a screen guy. So yeah, I think he's gonna be big, assuming that he does go to Mizzou. at the end of it all. But yeah, he's been a big recruiter. Some of the graphics that he's put out, the video when he committed were pretty entertaining.
Wild.
The Madison Wingo like presidential campaign graphics were pretty funny. So yeah, it seems like these guys are bought in. Whatever it is that Drinkwitz and his staff are selling, these guys are buying into. And it definitely seems like there's the idea of wanting to make Mizzou a powerhouse, or get Mizzou back to where they were a decade ago, competing to win the SEC. And that's something that Madison mentioned. He's like, oh, I want to play for my home state, and and make this program a good one.
Yes, I mean, all this positive talk about recruiting is great, but do you know what color Williams Nwaneri's gloves are going to be this Friday?
Probably red, if I had to guess.
Yeah. He's got some spare gear. He's just trying to use it. Doesn't want to
show them some love.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Also, Gerard Hamilton said today he has Mizzou gloves he's going to wear when they wear white. So,
there you go. Everyone can rest easy.
Hopefully that story can die off now.
Yeah.
I feel like that it's going to be a story until December 20th if he signs early.
Yeah. That's everyone is still going to be a little antsy until he puts the pen to paper, obviously. All right, you guys have anything else? Otherwise, I want to ask my advice question, so I'm going to put it on Kenny.
Go for it.
Kenny, I'm putting you on the spot. So we have Wendell on. Obviously, he's covering Mizzou football now for the Columbia Missourian. You did that last season, along with Jack Sobel and Kyle Pinnell, two phenomenal writers themselves. And it's a grind. Me and Peyton watched Kenny, be very, very busy during the year. So I wanted to ask, passing the torch now, what advice do you have for Wendell? We were talking a little bit about it off air, but what advice do you have for Wendell now on the beat as the season gets started this week?
So the one thing I would say, and I know Pete's not listening to this, your editor, after the game's over, once you've left the opposing stadium, I'm going to give you advice for the road. Once you've left the opposing stadium, just turn your phone off. Just don't it's over. Game's over. Once we left the Florida game last year, if Pete had anything, it's not our problem. I mean, that was just the point that we got to. We'd been working for 12 hours straight. We're like, okay, man, we're going to go to a bar. We're just not going to be on our phones. And that was the big thing. It's unplugging pretty much. And that was one of the best parts. You really get to explore those towns. Of course, you're not going to get to go to Gainesville, but you're going to get to go to Athens. You've told me you have family in the area as well. So you'll get to see a lot of Georgia, and you'll love it. I mean, there's so many cool places that you're going to go this season, and, wishing you the best. And I know you'll love every step of the way. I know you're 21 as well. So take advantage of that. You'll see some pretty cool bars in some of these college towns. Too bad you don't get to go to Auburn, because Auburn is the most beautiful place in the nation.
Stop talking.
Auburn is beautiful.
Auburn.
Shut up.
It's awesome. I hope you get a chance to go there when you're older. That's all I got.
Nice. And the My Herd game? Play the My Herd game?
Oh, yeah. If you see a group of cows, call it My Herd. So you're going to claim cows as you're driving. If there's a fence that separates them, those are two different herds. Every time you see a group of cows within a fenced area or just grouped together, you call them your herd. You count them up at the end of the road trip, and whoever wins. You can put money on it if you want, but totally up to you.
Okay.
But you say My Herd.
Okay.
There you go.
Wow,
Good
that
advice.
is some crazy advice.
Yeah. that took a turn. Yeah. Wendell, just have fun with it. It's a good time to just travel and explore, and you'll be the youngest in the room in probably almost every scenario, unless some other college writer is there with you. So just blow someone away by asking a great question.
Yeah, the whole beat's getting younger now with Dave Matter leaving the Post-Dispatch. So
yeah,
it's a bunch of young guys.
Yeah. So good opportunities. We are for those who have followed the Unwritten Rule. Everyone probably knows this, but Kenny, Peyton, and I are all Columbia Missourian sports alums. So we're happy to see it in good hands, and we're excited for you. We'll obviously be following. I'm sure we'll have you back on as Mizzou football keeps going, and make you talk about, I don't know, more Williams Nwaneri's whatever socks if he wears Tennessee next week or something crazy, whatever. But yeah, with that, we'll segue. But Wendell, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck, and yeah, we'll be following, retweeting, and certainly probably stealing your tweets to use in our own reporting. So
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
yeah, best of luck.